Hello and welcome back to the Eternal Tournament Series World Championships. We're back with Losers Bracket Round 1, and we have a Team ET mirror match here today with Moosh versus Tabu, both of them on the Team ET deck of Time Justice Primal Midrange. One of these players will be going home today, and your ears do not deceive you. This is a different caster. This is aReNGee back, subbing in for Rick Henner. It was my grandfather's 92nd birthday today, so we spent about a minute and a half on that, and I'm joined again by Calimdir.
Hello, hello.
So we should be hopping into game shortly, but I believe these lists are just about identical. They're both the Team ET deck, and we've gone over TJP mid-range a lot of times, so it's going to be very draw dependent, I imagine.
Yeah, this is the exact 90 card mirror. I'm almost certain. This is going to be really interesting. There's a lot of play back and forth between choosing silence targets, choosing how to deploy your threats and things like that. So it can be very draw dependent, but there is also some plays back and forth. But this is a deck that has been known to stumble on influence, things like that. So whoever runs smoother will have a significant advantage.
Yes, and we already see some key decisions coming into play as Tabu chooses to prioritize the hand that he has here, using that Seek power to go get the second Justice. But that does mean that he will be have no time until he draws it naturally, which leaves that Initiative Sands that he just drew totally dead in his hand.
Yeah, whereas Moosh has pretty much everything he wants. He's going to be able to play his Obelisk. He has enough power to get to the scouting party, and he's going to be taking over the air with his Valkyrie Enforcer coming down second.
Do you just silence the enemy Kothon that's going on there, and just, you don't mind staring off with these Valkyrie Enforcers here because you've got the Obelisk coming down next turn? Yeah, it looks like that's what he chooses to do.
I think if you play Valkyrie Enforcer that turn, that's what you do, because you don't know what's going on in Tobu's hand yet. If you see him miss a power drop, then I think you might be inclined to maybe just silence the Valkyrie Enforcer, but it's a little too early. And here comes another Valkyrie Enforcer from Tobu. Yeah, and he's got that Obelisk and Initiate stuck in his hand. Moosh is the one with more obelisks, so if it comes down to the battle of who has the biggerest units, Moosh will win that. But it might not get to that point, just because 6 damage worth of flying points might end this game for Tobu, or not being able to cast cards might end this game for him, and Moosh will take it.
Yeah, if Tabu can find that time influence that he needs and get his own Obelisk down, he's got a really quick clock. But for the moment, he's trading damage. Oh, it looks like he found it. Okay, so Tabu's going to swing in for probably the full 11 here, I imagine.
Yeah, I think so. And then he gets to play that Initiate.
And then that's just a 2-turn clock in the air, and Moosh has no counterplay.
Nope. I think that's basically it, outside of a Crystallized draw or a Sandstorm Titan or something, but there's a Vanquish for that Titan. So
yes, Moosh would need to draw something on the level of Crystallize here.
Valkyrie Enforcer would help. Yeah, so Crystallize or Valkyrie Enforcer, or maybe Island's Choice.
Valk wouldn't do it because of the Obelisk already in play. So Tabu could just Vank the Valk and then attack in for flying lethal.
Well, one of them would no longer be flying. So
but he'd have one left after Moosh has no flying blockers except for that Valk, which would get vanked.
Yeah. I was still thinking about what he would have had to draw this turn. Next turn, obviously, doesn't do it anymore. So now it's just Crystallize.
At least the second Obelisk means that he has good blocks on the ground here, so it's just the 2 flying units crashing in. Although, with that Vanquish coming out, not anymore.
Yep, and that's going to be
a forced jump.
Lethal? Oh, no, he's 1 off. Okay, wow. And that's not a Crystallize, so that's going to do it.
Lightning fast back and forth. Tabu emptying his hand, showing off his aggro roots, as it were. But we'll be hopping, I'm sure, right back into game 2. And that game really hinged on whether or not Tabu drew that time sigil on time. If he didn't find the time influence, he was going to be hard pressed to come back from the Obelisk beats. But because he had the better board position, and got down the first obelisk, he was able to push through.
Yeah, because this matchup is so unit heavy, you end up in a lot of board stalls. So it's whoever can get control of the air, or whoever can get the most crystallizes down or the most obelisks down and start beating in, is usually the winner there. And Tobu had the more relevant obelisk because it came down earlier, and he had the control of the air. So really just put him in the driver's seat there. But this is an interesting hand from both players. So Tobu can have at least one of each influence and then double of the one of his choice. So I think he might end up keeping his just because he can go Initiate and then not turn 2, but at least turn 3 Valkyrie Enforcer. Moosh, though, doesn't have too much action, but I think Sandstorm Titan might just be good enough. And I actually, Tobu's the one who throws it back and Moosh keeps his. So what do I know?
Yeah, well, Tabu would have to make some very tough decisions in order to get that initiate down anytime soon. And Mole's into pretty reasonable hand here for this kind of deck. He's going to have that Awakened Student and then Stand Together backup. If Moosh draws a 3-drop, he could be moving pretty fast, but he's really going Titan into Scouting Party right now. Obelisk is a nice draw, though.
Yeah, Obelisk is great when you have Initiate, Sandstorm Titan, and a Scouting Party in hand.
So just accelerating out all those early drops. But Tabu has a pretty good hand himself, and
ooh,
that's a good draw with the Seed of Progress already in place, so that he can activate it on turn 2.
Yep.
So despite going second, Moosh has the jump on the Awakened Student battle, and he's got a lot of gas to back it up. But Tabu's hand is not too shabby either. So this one looks like it's going to be more of a slugfest than a race.
I think before any more draws get involved, I'm really favoring Moosh's hand. I think he's just got more value per card. This Island's Choice could be relevant, and maybe this Awakened Student will get big enough that it'll mess up Moosh's plans, but I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this Obelisk Scouting Party combo is going to be a big deal.
Yeah, going to be a big problem for Tabu. If Moosh just slams the Obelisk and attacks here, Tabu does get to use his Island's Choice on the Awakened Student.
That is true.
Which is an efficient use of power here.
Wait, but doesn't he he hasn't played a power this turn, right?
He hasn't played his power yet, no.
Yeah, so he gets to use it no matter what. But
That's
yeah,
true.
it still would kind of not do anything. It would just be +1 damage to Initiate for his entire turn. Whereas if he plays, wow, oh, okay, so he's just playing around Island's Choice. That's pretty spicy, I think.
Yeah, Moosh not missing damage here. He's choosing not to expose his Awakened Student until he's got the Titan down, and then there's 2 Island's Choice threats, so he diversifies a little bit.
Yeah, so he's always getting in some damage. Basically, he just got in 3 damage that he wouldn't have got in, is essentially what happens, because now he's attacking for 5 with either of the units. So it just ends up being 3 free damage. And
wasted Tabu's entire turn. Tabu didn't get to efficiently use his Island's Choice, now needs to hold it up again. And I think you have to kill the student here, because otherwise it's just going to keep growing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. Well, he did waste Tabu's turn. Tabu didn't have anything else to play, which is why he ended up in that position, which Moosh doesn't know. So it ended up being kind of the same for Tobu. But yeah, Moosh really in the driver's seat. He's going to be able to play this Scouting Party. A ton of Yetis ready to party coming down, and Tobu didn't invite any of them, so it's just going to be really unwarranted.
Yeah, Tabu's hand didn't really develop with a lot of the powerful cards, whereas Moosh's hand started out with a couple powerful cards and drew some nice gap closers along the way.
Yep.
Scouting parties are going to be looking at each other on turn 6, but you got to favor the one with the Obelisk in play.
Yeah, and Stand Together short, he'll be able to match the power, but later. You know, he can't. Obelisk came down before Scouting Party. Stand Together has to come down after Scouting Party, and I don't think Tobu's going to have time for that.
Do you silence Initiate with Desert Marshal here to keep Moosh off of Scouting Party power? That could be a pretty sick play.
Yeah, that would be a pretty sick play. I think that would be the correct play if I knew hands, and that's what he goes for.
All right, interesting. There's nothing else to silence on the board right now, and there is a Seraph in Moosh's hand that could become a problem. But in these early turns, the only things you're really looking at are the Initiate and the Kothon. There's not too many priority silence targets in this matchup.
Yeah.
So Tabu making good use of his Desert Marshal allows him to be the first scouting party player.
Yeah, and now this stand together is real again, right? It's going to actually be able to do something relevant before Tobu's dead. If he plays a scouting party here, or even if he just holds up stand together, because that allows him to block the Sandstorm Titan and kill it with the Awakened Student.
I think there was some merit to thinking about not scouting party there. You know, maybe you play Kothon and then you go for a stand together block with your Awakened Student. But
Yeah.
Tabu just stand together is very powerful when you've got all these Yetis. So just electing to go for the more obvious line.
I also think it's the more rewarding play because scouting party costs 6 mana, right? So he just wants to get, like, anytime he plays scouting party, it means he's not going to be able to do anything else, and it opens him up. So he wants to play that as soon as possible because that frees him up now to have the stand together held up, to be able to play Kothon and activate it another turn or whatever, and feel a lot safer moving on. Whereas if he was trying to be safe before he got the scouting party, he'd always be like on this tenuous little rope of not maybe having enough blockers or whatever. So I think he just took the earliest opportunity he could to play it.
Right, and if your opponent doesn't attack, then you waste the stand together turn, and then you got to make the stand together versus scouting party decision the next turn. You were dead to crystallize there, but you can't live in eternal fear of crystallize.
Yeah, you gotta take one turn off somewhere
to play that scouting party. So now,
and now you play Kothon.
Yeah, nothing else really going on here. You play the Kothon, and then you see what's what.
You play the Kothon, you hold up the stand together. You maybe even play the power if you. I mean, maybe you don't play the power if you want to trick him into attacking with Titan, but I don't think. I'm pretty sure they both know they have stand together in the deck, so I don't think that's fooling anybody.
I think Moosh is just going to wait to get Seraph activated here.
Yep, and Tobu's going to wait for Kothon, but next turn, but that's not really going to do that much with this Titan on the field. So he's either going to have to start attacking with this Awakened Student, which is not really going to do too much, or he's going to just be hoping to draw something relevant faster than Moosh does. But I mean, Moosh just needs another power to have something relevant, so that's not a great bet.
Yeah. And as we know, Moosh already has the one in hand, so I imagine he'll sit back this particular turn. We might see Tabu fire off a end of turn stand together. He can't hold up stand together and activate Kothon, and he probably wants to get the additional unit in play.
Yeah.
And it'll just keep him safer from any top deck crystallizes or anything like that could otherwise completely put him out. And he does go for it.
No, he doesn't get the owl to be a 5/5, but whatever. It's not a big deal. That owl didn't need the shield anyway.
Yeah, with the way his power worked out, that wasn't going to be very easy to get. And just waiting to see what he drew, Sandstorm Titan. So
not great actually, because he's the only one with the flyer.
Yeah,
potentially.
It's not really better than playing the owl. This attack with the 8/8 is interesting, since that's mostly what was holding back the Sandstorm Titan of Moosh. But I imagine Moosh just takes this hit. Doesn't really mind taking a bit of damage. Deck doesn't have a ton of reach. And he just really wants to start rolling Seraph next turn.
Yeah, I mean, when you have an Obelisk on 8, every Seraph roll you get, even if you get a 0/0, is going to be 4/4. So the odds that he's going to have something to block this Awakened Student, very high. So he's going to wait till he gets that next turn.
I think that prices you into playing Titan, though. If you're Tabu? Nope. Okay. Just goes for the owl.
Always the owl.
All right. So we are in Seraph roll territory.
Yeah, I think Seraph rolls a little better in Initiative Hands. I'm not an expert, but
I mean, I hear Initiative Sands is pretty good. All right, so he rolled a 1/2, and it ended up as a 6/8. Seraph with Obelisk, pretty nice combo.
Oh yeah, and that's actually, I mean, pretty much anything would have been big enough. But that in combination with the Silence Initiative Sands makes a great blocking team for this Awakened student, and Moosh is feeling safe again. So now we're back at Crystallize time. Or it's always Crystallize time, but you know.
Crystallizer Obelisk are really the key cards that Tabu's looking for. Although, obviously, Crystallize a little better since it wins him the game.
Yeah, so now that he's played this Obelisk, he's really committing to this board stall. I mean, not that it was very realistic to try and win by drawing a Vanquish or something and then maybe just getting in with the Owl and Kothon, because as soon as he goes down any blockers, there's a huge attack coming back his way. But man, Pillar of Amar draft all-star coming in as a 14/14. Ready for action here. Any power off the top is now going to be a 7/7 with this Obelisk. And he gets to just keep activating this Seraph. This is pretty ridiculous.
But he's not actually made any headway towards winning the game, and he continues to be dangerously dead to stuff. Quick draw.
All right. Not unblockable.
That's not the most exciting ability here.
Yeah. So yeah, I think he's just gonna attack with the Pillar of Amar, try and get a couple units off the board to maybe make an alpha swing next turn. But just takes out a Yeti.
It'll be interesting to see how long Moosh waits before committing to a larger scale attack. Tabu looks like he's sitting on all nothing.
Wow. That scouting party means that if Moosh wanted to, he could just attack with a bunch of junk and then refill his board. And that would force Tobu to trade away a bunch of things.
So let's do the caster's least favorite thing and count.
No.
Tabu has 7 blockers, and there are 11 attackers. So I think Moosh has lethal.
Right? Yeah.
I think Moosh has lethal if he just ace spaces here. And he does. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So even with a Desert Marshal, that only takes away 1 blocker, and Moosh still has lethal. So we are now going to the sideboard games. I think both players split there. Should be 1-1 right now. Tabu took the first game off of the Obelisk, and then Moosh just took the second game off the Obelisk. I'm noticing a theme.
I'm not good with patterns. I've never been. Okay, anyways.
Yes. So the matchup's all built around the key cards, the Obelisk, the stand-togethers, and the scouting parties, and protecting them.
Yeah, before sideboard, that's definitely the case. I'm interested to see if they have the same sideboard plan, because they're on the same team, they have the same deck, but they might not have the same sideboard plan, because the Runehammers have been kind of a contested issue. So I think the Runehammers changed the matchup quite a bit. You can the matchup can get much more aggressively tilted, because you can just go like Awakened Student, Runehammer, kill their Awakened Student, and then you're just suddenly dealing a ridiculous amount of damage, and you have this 4/1 weapon to get even more damage if they don't have something. And then the Obelisk comes down too late, then the Scouting Party comes down too late, and none of those cards matter. The Crystallize doesn't do anything. So the matchup can definitely change post-board. It's just going to be interesting to see if someone goes for that more aggressive route, and then someone goes for more like, I'm going to commit to this board stall, have some protects and like humbug swarms and stuff. I'm going to be the person with more stand-togethers and more crystallizes, or and see which strategy works, or if they just both go for the same strategy.
So this isn't quite a 90 card mirror. I'm looking here and I see that Tabu's playing 1 more Crystallize and 1 more Islands choice than Moosh. 1 more Islands choice and 1 more Stand Together. But we are back in game, and so we will see what the players decided to bring in, if we see the Runehammers or not.
Oh yeah, I think.
Yes, yeah, and Moosh has some backlashes.
Moosh has 2 backlashes for those cards you just mentioned. Yep.
Can't play Kothon on 2. Can play Seraph on 2 though.
The 88 card mirror.
So that's pretty good for Moosh. A nice aggressive start like you talked about. Obelisk on 3, and Tabu has no castable spells.
Yeah, usually you want to cast cards. That's generally my plan when I go into a game. My goal is to cast a few cards. Tobu might have a different option, different perspective on that.
Well, Tabu did find a Seek Power that lets him unlock his hand, but this Obelisk is going to put most of the stuff out of range of blockers. But actually, he might be okay. He might be okay. He can play the Acolyte if he wants more power, or he can play Seraph or Vanquish if he wants a blocker, and then just play the Seed of Order. So Tabu has drawn out of his total screw and now has some decisions to make.
Yeah, I think I would be tempted to play the Vanquish because it prevents the most damage, and your opponent doesn't have Stand Together Protect up right now. But that leaves you more vulnerable to other cards you might need to remove later. But Seraph is the kind of card that you need to get off the table eventually anyway. So I'd be tempted to Vanquish because if he plays a Seraph right now, you might be playing into the opponent's Rune Hammer or something like that. But he just goes for the riskiest line, which is just play Amber Acolyte and take a ton of damage here.
Amber Acolyte does stop the initiate Sands from attacking, bar something else, and it sets him up with that time sigil so he can play Sandstorm Titan down the line. Next turn he can play like Seraph plus Vanquish if he wants to, or Crystallize if he's feeling super threatened.
Yeah.
Moosh responds with a 3/4, which works out pretty well if he does play the Seraph.
Yeah, the biggest thing there was that he drew Primal Influence, because before that he was out of cards to play, but now he's going to have this Kothon and be able to activate it next turn.
Mm-hmm. Crystallize, still not quite on the table, needs another Primal Influence for that. We'll need to remember that so we don't look silly later on down the line.
Yeah, Tobu has Crystallize online, but it's not really going to do much with just an Amber Acolyte on the board and an Endurance unit facing it down.
I do think you play Seraph plus Vanquish here. You'd like to kill Kothon, but you can't really do that realistically. And you can just play Sandstorm Titan or Scouting Party the next turn, depending on how threatened you feel.
Most tempo efficient play, and it changes. It like has the most effect of most power being played, most power being taken off the board. But here comes the Sandstorm Titan. So what do I know?
So Tabu decides to play around the 3 damage that Moosh was going to get if he activated Kothon next turn. Unfortunately, he ends up getting pretty punished for this, as Moosh did bring in the Rune Hammers, is able to clear the board and smash in for 9, putting Tobu kind of on the back foot. And in fact, decides to pack it in there.
Yeah. And so that's the end of that. So now Moosh with a 2-1 lead over Tobu.
Yeah, Tabu on the verge of elimination to his teammate. And if I'm not mistaken, they just jam back into it. Yes, so we are back for potentially the final game of Tabu's tournament. Moosh on the verge of moving on into losers bracket round 2, and
look at that hand, look at that synergy, double flyer into Sandstorm Titan. I'm ready to roll. But yeah, that's a good tempo.
both players with the ET trademark Initiative Sands on 1. Very
both premium.
Showing off the deck's consistency.
Most
Tabu
consistent deck NA.
Doesn't really build that into anything though, which has been his problem in a lot of these games. His opening hands haven't really built themselves out very successfully.
Yeah.
And he's been on the back foot to Moosh's power.
Yeah, Moosh has had an interesting run this whole tournament. Starting out with was it 0-13 almost? In
0-13. Asked to drop, was encouraged to continue for the elimination. Won his final 2 matches, got a bit of confidence back. Won both his elimination breakers, so he got to come back for the second round robin, which he then nearly swept, going 8-0 before finally being defeated by Rhino in order to score Rhino his berth into today. And unfortunately lost his opening match this morning. But he's back here, and he's now on the verge of eliminating a teammate.
Yeah, really impressive run from him. As we see these initiatives and stare each other down. What's the
So,
play here? Okay.
so Tabu's attacking because obviously he has nothing in hand to ramp into. So it's better for him if they trade. And Moosh is just
Yeah.
thinking, why is this guy attacking? I don't understand.
Well, I'll attack too. Fine.
Man, that could, I guess that wouldn't have gotten eaten by a Desert Marshal since they would have traded.
And he still wouldn't have been able to play Koton even if it died, so
Yeah.
whatever.
Well, Tabu with a nice draw with that Sandstorm Titan. His hand was
Yeah.
all air, so finding that is very good for him. But
I don't know.
Moosh able to answer with a Titan of his own.
I think Moosh had more air in his hand with the double Kothon. Okay, anyways. But yeah, now he's going to be able to play Seraph and Kothon next turn. And Tobu just kind of hoping to stall out for this scouting party and then crystallize. But with 2 endurance units on the board, not great.
Decides not to go for the attack into
Stand together.
yeah, almost certainly would have gotten double blocked. So
Yeah, it'll be more tempting now that he's got a couple units out to benefit from, or if he can get more units out to benefit from Stand Together. But
Crystallize
more blockers.
Not a very good card into 3 endurance units.
Yeah, it turns out.
Yeah. So Moosh definitely in the driver's seat. Tabu's going to be able to play Scouting Party, but Moosh has enough blockers that I'm not sure that that's going to be good enough. Kothons aren't going to be flying anytime soon, but they will start spitting out units, and Moosh is only 2 more turns away from Seraph.
I was going to note that these endurance units all have some nice cold weather clothing with the scarves and the robes and stuff. But then I realized that every single unit that they've played is prepared for this crystallize, and they still get taken out. So what do I know?
Yeah, Tabu does draw the primal source that he needs for crystallize, but drawing that power less great when you don't have the Kothons or Seraph in play.
And he's actually going to the replay to check if he's played a power, I think, or if his opponent played a power, or what's going on.
Yeah, maybe wanted to check for a seed or something.
Yeah.
Doesn't elect to do anything. He's hiding that second primal source.
Yeah, which I think is good, but I think Moosh will always be thinking about crystallize anyway.
Do you like end of turn stand together into crystallize here just to push through? Like you can't leave this Seraph. Oh no, never mind. Okay, he drew an obelisk. That's pretty good.
I don't know why you would even bother talking about standing there when you can clearly play this obelisk, guys.
He hasn't played a power yet, right? He can play that.
Yeah, he can.
Primal Sigil. All right, so all of his units are going to be 3/3s.
But then he'll lose the value of hiding crystallize. I don't know. Yeah. So
if he just
having.
Oh, okay.
Having that much buff is going to be huge.
Tabu, I think Tabu's going to pass, and the next turn he can just stand together plus crystallize. Yeah, so he's hiding the fact that he is crystallize active. Doesn't really matter to Moosh. All Moosh can do is roll Seraph.
Yeah, and he's hiding the 8th power, so he's going to have a huge attack here.
Sort of gives up that he's got stand together a little bit with that incredibly long pause. But he's just throwing it out end of turn anyways.
It could have been anything, all right?
Yeah. Could have been a backlash on the ability.
Yeah.
So here's the crystallize, and we've got 3 blockers. So how much damage is that?
Isn't Moosh the one with backlashes? Anyways.
That's only 12. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so this is still big, though, if he gets to draw any cards. The problem is if he gets hit back in 2 turns, but I don't think that's going to be an issue with it.
I don't think the game's going to last that long.
Yeah.
If he doesn't chump Titan, if Moosh does not chump Titan, he's taking big chunks of damage, and Tabu's drawing 1 card at the very least. So, going to have more gas. Doesn't have anything in hand, but...
What Moosh can do is take out this initiate to put Tabu back down to 7 power so that he doesn't take as much damage the next turn, but...
That gives up 3 cards and 20 damage.
Well, 12 if he chumps the Titan with the other Titan. but it's pretty bad. It's not
Okay,
a
then that
good
gives
play.
up 4 cards and 16
Yeah.
damage.
Yeah, it's not good.
Looks like he's just going to go for single chump? Okay. So it
Yep.
keeps the Kothon around for next turn. Takes
That's it.
16. Tabu draws 3. It's looking good for Tabu. Tabu's not going down without a fight.
Yeah, he's about as happy as all those Yetis.
Those Yetis. Yeah.
Maybe slightly less, googly-eyed, but definitely happy.
Second obelisk and Moosh draws power and just has no outs. So
yeah,
we're going to a game 5.
Yeah, game 5 in this mirror. Seems like these decks are pretty evenly matched. Who would have guessed?
Yeah. Well, it hasn't necessarily been the player with the fastest start that's been able to do it, although we have seen 2 games decided by that and 2 games decided by Obelisk plus Crystallize. So looks like there's really 2 ways that this game can end. If the match doesn't end immediately, it sort of gets into a grind fest, and then whoever draws the board stall breaker.
Yeah, and both players being good, being very good, and knowing the matchup and knowing their deck eliminates a lot of the it in a way makes variance a bigger thing because both players are going to make the right plays most of the time here.
Most of the time, yeah. Well, Moosh is on the Awakened Student kind of hand, and Tabu's on the expensive one with without his colors. So
yeah, if Tobu had double justice, I might be leaning towards him a little bit just because it might potentially just take out both Awakened Students. But Moosh is going to be able to play 2 Awakened Students down and start beating him for a ton of damage before Tobu can really do anything.
Can really do too much, yeah. So Moosh is really looking for action here, and I think my sound is gone.
Yeah, he's got a tough choice here. What to use this Diplomatic Seal on? Primal, trying to get that second justice, or trying to get that... he's already got 2 times for the Sandstorm Titan, so it's going to be about second justice or first primal here, because you're not getting double primal. And he goes for the justice, which I think is probably the right call. Or rather, I think you get the justice Diplomatic Seal, and then you hold the Seek power to make that decision later.
Mm-hmm. So it's better for Tabu. Tabu gets to draw 1 card deeper, but it does put him in a tough situation if he, like he does here, draws a 3-drop and now can't really play it. And he really would have liked to play that Vulcan Forcer.
Yeah, that definitely would have been a big deal, being able to silence this Awakened Student. Moosh not playing the... That's interesting. I think I would have been very tempted to play the Awakened Student and hold on to the CRF. Just start getting my +1s in. But this is the more tempo-efficient play because that means next turn he can just play Kothon and Awakened Student and really get on the board.
Yeah, Seraph is more damage now. Awakened Student getting to grow immediately is a little bit better. Moosh not having a Vanquish, though, means that it's going to be tough for him to attack through this Titan. Yeah, so that does stall things for Tabu a bit.
He's going to probably end up using his Valkyrie Enforcer on it, and then trying to get in with Kothon and Valkyrie Enforcer as the game goes on, all while building up his Awakened Students to the point that they can attack to his Titan. I mean, right now I'm really heavily favoring Moosh just because it's a little late for this Runehammer to start doing stuff. It'll probably... if he plays it, it's got to be right now. Okay.
Yeah, and I think you take out the Awakened Student, probably.
Yeah, now he can actually get both Awakened Students. So I don't know what I was saying before. So this is actually still pretty good because now Moosh has to either lose a unit to this block or just concede that the Runehammer is going to be a clean 2-for-1.
I think you have to leave the second Awakened Student alone if Tabu does get to keep this Runehammer and just kill the Kothon. I think it's the bigger threat. At this
probably
point.
True, especially when you have a Vanquish.
Yeah. But Tabu looks pretty stable now. I mean, Moosh has Crystallize, but Crystallize Crystallize is a good card, but that's all his action that he's got at the moment, and Tabu's going to be able to take out should be two threats here, probably. Although not drawing a power is hurting him a lot.
Yeah, not drawing any power is really rough, but Runehammer really coming in clutch here, being that big 2-for-1 in decks that really don't have a lot of card advantage until you start getting to those weird power spikes like 8 and 6. And then if he does get into the late game, he's got double scouting party and obelisk, whereas Moosh just has these aggressive. He's got the 2-drops and the 3-drops, and that's just where all of his power went.
So the question is, will Moosh be able to rush Tabu down before Tabu's able to draw some power and stabilize a little bit?
Yeah, exactly.
So he's electing to silence the Kothon, I think.
Yeah, and I think that's actually more reasonable, because otherwise he wouldn't have really had any great plays. He would have been maybe playing Obelisk or Seraph, and I think playing the Valkyrie Enforcers better and just dealing with dealing with both problems now makes it frees up his Vanquish later for a potential Titan or something like that, or if an Obelisk comes down.
So Moosh draws a Vanquish, and I imagine you just Vanquish Titan and push in with your 2-3 power units here.
Yeah, seems very likely. I mean, Crystallize is also an option, and then try and Vanquish a blocker that comes down after. But I don't think you don't even have 2-turn lethal, so I just don't really see that being.
You gotta hold on to that Crystallize, since that's your only trump.
Yep.
So elects not to trade the Volks because of the Crystallize, which was another option.
Yeah, and I think that's the right play.
Tabu does not draw that power, which outplays Moosh's Vanquish, as it now has no targets.
Yep. So now, Moosh does go for the Crystallize,
as he does have 2-turn lethal.
Yeah, now Tobu doesn't have any great plays. He just ended up being stuck on 4 for too long.
Yeah. He can.
Finally, there's a Primal Influence, but no cards to play other than this Seraph.
Man.
That's lethal with that Auric
Runehammer, and that's game.
And that's going to be it. Tobu having an insane run on day 1 of this tournament, and Moosh having the worst performance. But here now in top 8,
in week
Moosh
2, it's turned around.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, Tabu's run will end there on the back of 4 power and a Runehammer. The Runehammer was his saving grace, but it was also his demise. So he will be going home from the tournament in 8th place, and Moosh will be moving on. His underdog story continues. I believe we are now going to take a quick production break, and then we will be switching over to Sirius versus Unearthly, back up in winner's bracket round 2. We have the results of our other match. Sir Rhino defeated Sunnyvale 3-1 in the loser's bracket match. So Sunnyvale, despite his actually both of the players who had fantastic or two of the players who had fantastic round robin 1 runs are defeated early on.
Yeah.
Both Sunnyvale and Tabu dropping down.
Yeah, we got to see that one on stream, and that was a pretty tough matchup.
Oh, whoops. Okay. So yes, we'll be jumping back up to winner's bracket round 2 momentarily.